Welcome back to Clear Picture Cares. I'm your host, Jason Noble. And with me today, we have an amazing guest from United Way's Alice program. I'm really excited to introduce Latoya and DJ. The thing about Alice is it's an acronym. It's just not a person, right? And this is why we were here today is to learn more about Alice. Now, I have done a lot of research because even though as a financial professional, we are helping people with their financial needs. We're just doing it in a different way. Can you share with us what is Alice, what does it stand for, and how United Way is helping those that are in this situation?
Yeah, we'd be happy to. So we're really blessed to be from Trident United Way. And Trident United Way for the last 80 years has been laser focused on how do we work with families when they are struggling, whether that's financially, whether that's learning, whether that is their ability to move forward in society. That has been our through line for 80 years. And a few years ago, we noticed that costs were just going up way faster than wages. Yet no one had specific numbers. I talked to somebody and they would say, it's housing costs are up too much. I talked to another person and they would say, it's the incredible cost of childcare. I talked to another one and said, I've got two teenagers. You know what it costs to buy eggs, milk, and food these
That's
days? No one had any specific numbers. And then people just started pointing to housing and transportation. When we looked at all of what was going on, what we saw was costs had continued to go up faster than wages. But there wasn't a concrete data that you could point to in a neutral, nonpartisan way that told the story. And so when we looked around, we saw that this framework called ALICE, which stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed, really told an honest story about hardworking families, many who are working one, if not multiple jobs to make ends meet, put food on the table, yet have to make tough choices every day. And so we brought that to life about 2 years ago, rolled that out to the community. And we just updated the data this morning and can share some of that data with you if that's helpful.
I mean, this is going to be hot off the presses, and we're looking forward to that data. But when it goes into, like, you identify that there's this problem going on because there's others that may be working, but they get government assistance.
Yes.
Those are not who you're serving in the Alice program, correct? They're above that threshold, but they're still in that cycle that people are facing.
Yeah, we've been in a situation since at least 2009 when we look back at the data. It costs double what it took to live in Charleston County now versus what it costs in 2009. But it's like a frog in a boiling water. The cost goes up, temperature goes up, and people's understanding of what financial struggle is based on 20, 30 years ago's situation. But we know the world is vastly different today. And I'll give you an example. We estimate based on our data, which is all public data. We encourage people to look at it, to see. But we know right now, if you a family of four with a child in childcare, you're looking at high $80,000, so around $89,000 for a family of four just to live here. That doesn't include a car payment. It doesn't include student loans. It is not going out to eat. It's not putting money away for retirement. It is literally housing, food, transportation, healthcare, childcare for a child, and auxiliary costs. And when we step back and look at that, this idea that in 2009, you could live on $40,000 as a family of four, yet today it's in the high 80s. It's just a very difficult thing for people to get their heads around. So our goal with the ALICE framework is to redefine what does financial struggle look like and have an honest conversation. Because when we underestimate the effect of financial struggle on families, we underestimate and don't understand what it actually takes for a community to thrive 10, 15 years from now, because the decisions we're making with our policymakers, with our business community, with community leaders like yourself, and with those families that are affected are going to really dictate how effective their children can be at learning, how effective they can be showing up at work, and how prepared we are as a community for the continued growth that Charleston is blessed to have, but is really unequal when it comes to the ability for families to take care of themselves.
And Latoya, you work directly with these families. First off, I just want to say thank you because we need people out there helping. I want to get to the data. I'm a data geek, but I gotta hear good stories, right? We love hearing good stories. Can you share with us? We could change the names to protect the innocent.
Oh, absolutely. We'll just not even include the names. So I can give you two stories.
Okay.
Just this week, we had two clients that came in. One, unfortunately, lost everything that they owned to a house fire. So I was able to assist this client with information on how to get in contact with the Red Cross, assist them with getting some clothing vouchers for each member of their family, providing them information on housing after the American Red Cross assistance runs out, and then providing them information about the different food pantries that we have as well. Because right now they're currently getting food for their children through the school system, but of course school will be out next week. And so they're still going to continue to have that need. So providing them a list of agencies in the local area that are going to be able to provide them with food, as well as the days of the week that they will be able to provide that. So they have like a list of agencies they can go to when we're not open. And then there was also an additional client that we assisted through our barriers to employment program. This employment program kind of assists clients who have any barriers that keep them from being employed or keep them from staying employed. And so I had a client who had a job, but she did not have childcare. And so we were able to assist that client. So she had a job offer letter with 2 weeks of daycare to be able to put her child in daycare and not have to worry about that while she was waiting for her first check. So those are just a couple of stories that we see on a daily basis with so many clients that need so much assistance in the workplace.
And so like, instead of them being a statistic, they have someone like you that could be there holding her hand through this process. There's nothing like having the excitement of a new job and then the dread of where am I going to have my child be protected, be cared for as I prepare for this.
Absolutely.
So you're able to, how do they know to reach out to you?
Well, we do a lot of engagement with word of mouth with our clients who have been assisted previously. They kind of pass that information on to people who live with them. We have information on our website. And then we also have community partners that are in the center in Berkeley County and our Dorchester Center that also provide information as well. So we kind of do a lot of cross promotion between the different agencies.
So Latoya, like I'm thinking about the first story that you shared. You have to know like what resources are available to those, and not only what resources, but what's the process to get access to those resources. That's a whole other thing. Not only that, you also have to know like what other availability of options are as far as food pantries and other resources beyond just government resources. How do you go about learning that and then being able to connect the dot in a way that's easy for those who are going through such a dramatic, life-altering, changing event where you're calming them down, going, we got a plan for this, we got a process, just trust the process and let's go through this together. How do you learn and navigate that? Because I'm sure that could carry on you.
Yes, definitely. We carry it home. I mean, but the goal is essentially, we see people sometimes on the worst day of their lives. And so we essentially assist them with the first thing they come in for, whether that's like a utility bill or we just had a fire. So we assess that most pressing need first. And then as the conversation goes on, there's a lot more talking about other things that they may need. So we kind of provide in the centers what we call a wraparound effect, where we assist clients and then walk them through to other agencies that also provide. And as far as the education piece, our job requires us to be out in the community and make these relationships and be able to have the most up-to-date information for clients. And a lot of that is done by going to community events. We also have community calls in the Tri-County area where we speak to different agencies, different people do presentations and inform us on things as far as like funding and different services that they provide. And then we then in turn provide that information to the clients.
I see all the moving parts and I just find it remarkable that you're going to be there on someone's potentially worst day, but then also have like resources and processes in place to help them. And so we got new data hot off the presses, like right before we went to record. It's like, we got this new information. That
You got the scoop.
Got the scoop. But I was like, wait, I want to wait for the podcast to hear it. So what is the new information that we're seeing now through the studies?
So over the last 2 years, we've been updating our data. As soon as data is available, we update it. It's based on public data. And so we just this morning released a statewide report, which breaks it out by county and by each location where people live. When we look at the Tri-County, what we see is that there's right now 347,000 households in Tri-County. And what our data shows us is that 130,000 of those are in this ALICE threshold or below. So essentially that means that 38% of the households across the Tri-County are really struggling to afford to live here. Now, that does include some families below the federal poverty line, but there's 4 more folks above the federal poverty line working, not even that are now below the federal poverty line. And so when we look at it, we see trends that are developing. Most likely to be Alice involves a household with a child. Why? Adding a child can simply make sure costs go up. You might be fine on 2 incomes as a household, add that first child in, or sometimes the second child, and now you've gone from being able to make ends meet, put a little bit of money away for savings, and maybe treat yourself once in a while, to now having to make impossible decisions. Do I buy food or pay a light bill? Do I fix my car so I get to work? Or do I pay for my child's medical expenses? Do I buy health insurance through my employer? Or do I roll the dice and go without? And so you have families making really impossible decisions every day simply because they've added that child into their household, and yet they can't work enough hours to make it work. The other group we see that is fast growing is Alice's seniors. When you think about it, it just makes sense. Fixed income, usually on retirement savings or on a pension, costs go up faster than their wages. And we also see a trend where if you are a single parent or a grandmother raising a child, a grandchild, or a family friend who's taking on the responsibility for a child, that also is fast growing for Alice. And so that's what we're now seeing also showing up at our resource connection centers, and our dozens of nonprofit partners are seeing is really, again, hardworking families starting to make ends meet. What will happen is if they're not able to make their shift, you start to spiral. You miss a shift, now all of a sudden you got even more difficult choices to make. You may get laid off because you missed a shift because you've got to go take care of something. And so we're trying to figure out how we work with the business community, our politicians, our business leaders to think about flexibility, because just increasing wages alone won't solve this. You've got to think through a whole host of issues and in a very nonpartisan and thoughtful delivery.
And, and when I think of inflation, obviously I'm thinking of just the price at the pump and groceries, but then there's also rising costs of rent, right? Of rents. We're seeing that across the nation, and we're seeing that rise rather quickly. I'm seeing that from the data that I have, right? But then also, hey, you have a home, and like, okay, you're paying your mortgage, you're paying your property taxes. They reassess your property taxes because the home equity value has risen. Okay, you're not getting raked over the coals like you are in New Jersey. Loving you out there in New Jersey. I'm just saying. But still, that extra $500 a year, that can make a difference into a lot of these families. And so, how has the progress been made as far as business owners, politicians, right? There is a saying like the worst thing you can hear is I'm from the government, here to help, right? But like politicians that do watch and listen, thank you, but like we need your help. But what is the things that you're seeing as far as trends in the community wrapping arms around this 38% of our neighbors, of the people who watch our children, of the people who teach our children, right? Of the people who are involved in every single aspect of our life. What is being done as far as the people who can make some moves?
Yeah, we are blessed to live in the Tri-County area. And I don't know if it's because of base closures in the past or the hurricane, or we're just nice people and care about one another down here. But there's a fundamental reaction that we see from our government, whether it's North Charleston, Charleston County, City of Charleston, Berkeley, or Dorchester, any of the city governments or mayors there, that they, regardless of political affiliation, are rolling up their sleeves and saying, how do we work across our region? And we're blessed to be a group that really is helping make some of those decisions by just providing honest data. But I can't tell you how lucky we are to have mayors who want to work together, county councils who look at data and try to make decisions, and regardless of political affiliation, really want to do what's best for the people here. And I think that in this world we're moving into, where we're continuing to see costs go up, means we as a tri-county are going to have to become increasingly reliant on ourselves to figure these solutions out. And it's going to take strong government, strong business leaders, caring community citizens, neighbors rolling up their sleeves, and yes, the nonprofit community coming together to not duplicate services, but to make sure services are available. You had mentioned housing. When we look at the data, 66% of renters and 43% of homeowners in Tri-County are paying more than 30% of their household income on housing. That means that's less dollars, to your point, going to other things. Now you factor in costs going up on other areas, you're making more tough decisions. I don't know what you're seeing, it's like It's a challenge.
It's definitely a challenge, even with rent and with mortgage, we see an increase of clients coming into the center looking for rental assistance, and not just people that are renting. This is also people that own property for, the reasons we've explained. Taxes have gone up, the price of groceries have gone up, the price of daycare has gone up, everything has gone up, and we just have not increased, and it seems like no end in sight, unfortunately.
And so there's people that are driving and listening to us right now, and they're probably pulling over at this point because they're going to want to write down your website. What's the website they can go to so they can learn more?
No, they can go to www.tuw.org. They can find information on there as far as how they can give back. They can do a monetary donation, whether that is like a one-time donation or a monthly recurring donation, and also find different ways that they can assist the community, if that's volunteering with any of the programs we have, or just learning more about what we do.
And that is tuw.org. That would be Tango Uniform Whiskey.org for you those in the military, right?
Yes.
So go ahead and write that down. Now, for those who are watching this on our website, click the link below to learn more, take you right to that website, okay? Now, it's a great segue. I love what you said. It's a great segue into what are you needing at this point from the community? Okay, we got the politicians involved. That's an act of Congress in itself, right? Great work there. We got some business owners, right? So either you are a business owner watching this or you work for a business owner. What are some of the conversations you would want us to be having? And what are the ways that we can get involved?
Yeah, I think right now, if you would ask me what is most needed, is we need people to get off the sidelines. This is an issue that will actually threaten the fabric of this community moving forward. It's rising affordability. It will take alignment across everything. So whether you're a business owner, a citizen, just somebody who cares, we really need to roll up our sleeves. That means get involved. Look to volunteer. Go to our website. They could call our 211 number. We can connect them to volunteer opportunities with our partners and nonprofits across the area. Because again, we're all collaborating together to make a difference. If they want to advocate, we'd be happy to point them towards resources so they can reach out to their elected officials they may have relationships with and advocate for families. Again, we're nonpartisan. It doesn't mean we don't move stances forward that will help the business community and families make ends meet. And then the last is to get out their wallets and give. If they're comfortable, make a donation to a nonprofit, Trident United Way, or one of our many partners. They're on our website. We're really working in this area to lift up families because we're all working together towards one outcome. How do we uplift families out of financial struggle and out of poverty so we can continue to show up for work and kids to farm? If they're a business owner, we would love to sit down and have a conversation about what are the flexibilities that can be provided. And can we actually bring some of our service or our partner services to the table to help them retain their employees? For us, helping a family before they financially spiral is critical. For the employer, they're going to lose a really good employee if they're not thinking through that. So again, wages alone won't solve this. But we do need people to get off the sidelines and help figure out how solutions for it. We'd be happy to connect them with us or another group that can help.
Can't help but think of those who are listening right now and are like, okay, I love everything that's being said, but like, why aren't the ones who are working? They each have a job. They had the life decision to have a child or maybe two, and to live in this area. Why can't they move further out and drive an hour and a half in instead of like relying on Alice? Speak to that person who has that heart that's warming up, but still has their arms a little crossed. What would you say to them?
I would definitely say, first and foremost, being in service in the community is something that's definitely important. When you assist someone, it changes the fabric of your being and the trajectory of your life. Like I said, we see people on the worst day of their lives. Most of these people that we see are working 2 to 3 jobs and are still trying to survive. I think sometimes the common misconception is that they may not be working at all, they may be doing gig work, or they just aren't doing anything to try to take care of themselves. But a lot of times it's completely opposite. They are aware of the resources that are out there. They're living in an area where their rent may have been $300, $600, $800. And then because the trajectory of things are changing, people's rent has raised $800 on top of that. And so there's a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes that people aren't aware of. And so in that case, I would just say, just give people grace. Just give people grace, and we're all in here trying to do the same thing and work together to be able to assist people financially, giving them education, and just being a sound voice that just says, I'm here, I've got you, and we're going to get through this.
If I could add one thing, Jason, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't also recognize that many of the listeners who are listening have been or are allies. Statistically, we're talking families. We've got individuals in practice who are suddenly facing investments that may not have been gone as straight as they could have, or savings that just haven't gone far enough. We're seeing folks of all levels of society in this Alice bucket. So regardless of where you live, whether it's Kiowa, North Charleston, or Guatemala, we see pockets of Alice. And so for those individuals who are listening, we see you. We are here to help. Reach out to us, call 211, which is a health and human service line. Visit our website, which we can connect you there, or reach out to us and we can see at one of our resource connection centers or one of our partners. But the key is to realize with this many households, you're not alone. We see your struggle. We're here to help. So please raise your hand and be helped.
You inspired me to tell a story on this. So it's my own personal story. When I graduated college, I had $98,000 of student loan debt, and I was living alone, and my car broke down. And I'm studying for my Series 7 so I could become a financial advisor. So I'm off to a great start. Let me tell you folks, right? I think that first year, who's going to a 23-year-old saying, hey, can you help me with my retirement plan? That first year I made like $23,000. And I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Yep. Car breaks down. And at least I had an office to go to that had to pay around $400 a month to work at that office. That should have been a red flag. Okay. So I had to take a bus. Mm-hmm. And I could take the express and get there within about 45 minutes, or I could take the local, which was an hour and 25. But I'm still studying for my Series 7. So I'm on the bus studying for my license. Nothing like that, right? You learn how to have a steady hand as the bus goes up and down, right? But then I'm like, I got to write a check to pay to fix my car so I could get back on the road. And I'm saving up money, and I had to make a decision. Do I pay for my gas or my electricity? And this is not in Charleston. This was in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I'm going, we're coming into the winter months. If I keep my gas on, at least I don't have to wear like 8 blankets on top of me. And I can still make food in the oven, but I can't turn on the lights, right? And I can't microwave anything. Or I could turn off the gas, I could microwave and have a light on the read, right? But I'd have to wear multiple layers, and I couldn't use the oven. I decided to go with the gas instead of electricity because I bought a flashlight, right? So I could study on the bus, I could read my Series 7, I passed that, and a week later I had to take the 66. After that, I got a bonus for that, and I was able to get my car back, and then I was able to get out of that rut. And I did pay off my student loans, for those who are wondering, within 4 years because I used a process and a procedure. But I learned all that through being a financial advisor. Like, we all have our skill sets in life. I think back at that time, and that was a critical point in my career and my life. If I did not use my own experience into helping myself out, where would that have been? Would I still have that debt on my ankle as I'm trying to build a career and build a life, right? But we all have different strengths. So if my strength is being a chef, maybe I don't have a strength in finances, and I'm just going, okay, how do I navigate through them, right? And I just go through like, yeah, we're considered a top 5 financial service, like this office, top 5 in the entire country. I could probably count on one hand how many of my clients even know that story I just shared. So my message was not to talk about me. My message was, you yourself, you're doing well. And you're going, why can't they get out of this? What are they not doing? This is why Alice is providing these resources and education and tools so they could get on the other side, as Alice is stepping in on one of the worst days of their life. Right. So right now, this is where you're going to the website so you can learn more and see how you can actively get involved. And one of the last questions I like to ask is if you could leave an impression with our listeners on the importance of giving back, the value of giving back to the community. You touched on it earlier. That's why I love what you said, but I'd like you to expand upon it. What would be that impression on our listeners?
I think for me, just being someone who was raised, with the requirement of the importance of giving back, it changes your community where you are. There's people you go to work with, go to church with, and see on a daily basis who are not sharing everything about the things they're going through. And sometimes it takes a lot for them to be able to do that. And so in those moments, just like you said, we just need to be there and say, it's okay, you're not the only one, and this is what we can do to help.
DJ?
I think Joanne said beautifully. I think the only thing I would add is that this is about our neighbors. This is about what type of a community you want to live in. So whether you're listening to this in Cincinnati, Ohio, or here in Charleston, there's similar financial situations playing out across the world. And so it takes thoughtful strategies that teach people and at the same time can help support them while they're trying to move to a different place in life. And that doesn't happen on its own. We've all had loved ones who've helped us, or we've had opportunities that we were lucky to have, or in some cases worked really hard to get. But that's not a universal opportunities that are there. And so really it becomes a question of how do we want a community to look 10 years from now? And I would encourage everyone to just plug in whatever way makes sense for that, because not only is it about your soul, but it's really about the fabric of what world your kids are going to grow up with 20 years from now.
I thought that verbiage is the fabric of the community, the fabric of the environment your kids are going to grow up in is I love that verbiage. I haven't heard it on this podcast, and I've heard beautiful answers, and those answers were absolutely amazing. It's why do we do this? And I think you hit the nail on the head. As we wrap up, right, with our Clear Picture Cares conversation, is there any other things you want to make sure you highlight? Any events coming up? People always like to get dressed up in Charleston. Who knows? Anything like that? Any workshops coming up? Anything like that you can share with us?
I can start. So at the Resource Connection Centers, we do have monthly engagements, whether that is job fairs or just community opportunities where people can get out and find out the different services that are out there. In addition to that, we also have community health workers that come out from Work for St. Francis and MUSC for clients who don't want to drive to Charleston to see their doctor. They can come in and go into one of our offices and see their clients and their doctor on a computer. So that's kind of something that we have. In addition to that, we do also have some blood drives that are coming up. So any opportunities in addition to food share and our food pantries where we need clients to come out and volunteer, there's plenty of opportunities for them to get in and put in the work in the community.
And I would just add, there are 800 United Ways in the United States. It's the 34 countries around the world, but in the US, there's 800 United Ways. Almost every community where one of your clients is in has a United Way that is laser focused on the unique needs of their community. And so if they're here in Charleston, reach out to us. If they're in a different city, reach out to their local ones. I don't ever want to live in a community where we don't have strong government, strong civic leaders, strong volunteers, and a united way that is aligned to help with all of those and ignite those. And so we just urge folks, because united is the only way we're going to solve these problems. And if we're not working together and they're not working within the structure itself, it's going to be really difficult. So get off the sidelines, get involved, and give, volunteer, advocate, whatever makes sense.
Be a fabric of the community. United is the only way. United Way, appropriately named. I just want to thank Latoya, DJ, and Alice for the work that y'all doing. Thank you so much. I'm again Jason Noble. You just watched and listened to 20 Clear Picture Cares. Sorry, go check out 20 Minutes of Clarity too. But no, this is Clear Picture Cares. And I just want to say thank you for tuning in and listening. Take action, engage.